you tell us a little bit more about your amazing foray into diamonds and the commodities market in general? This is an area probably many people in the room are not that familiar with.
Yeah, so I'll talk about this as the experience of raising capital, and as an investor, I like to be an angel investor because I have a lot of experience in software, so I also like to be hands-on and where I can add value. But there's also some lessons that I've learned that were mistakes as well. But I think they also highlight opportunities for family office investors, high net worth investors that want to find these very high growth opportunities where it is something new or patentable, or which has been the case with Diamond Standard. So I was very fortunate because this was my 5th startup that I wrote the first check. And that's very helpful because very often startups start with a venture capitalist. And right away they often work for that venture capitalist, which is very often what they try to engineer. And I know for me that I could never do that. I need to run things. And so I wrote the first check, and I started the process of building a minimum viable product, we call it, filing the first patents for this. And really showing that there's something possible. And right away, I knew a lot of hedge fund people. And so it turned out to be pretty easy to raise money initially from the hedge fund industry. And not from the funds, but from like the people I used to work for, other portfolio managers. And it was a lot of $500,000 checks. We've ultimately raised $40 million, so we have a lot of small investors. And I made a decision, which you may see in the entrepreneurs that you may try to fund, that I really didn't want any venture capital because I'd been burned by venture capital. And so I created a mechanism where I was raising a lot of small checks. And when you raise small checks, the nice thing is no one ever fights you for board seats or governance or all of these things. And so to some extent, what I learned is I painted myself into a couple of corners. Number one, when you start raising serious money without any VCs, you never get on that track. That VC track that when you need to raise or want to raise 20, 30 million on like a Series B, you're just not on their radar. You don't have the cap table that they're expecting. So that was a lesson, and that basically shut that avenue down for me. And so it's something you should think about when you're investing in early stage companies. Are you painting them into a corner? And you may be. Their reluctance to take that venture capital for very good reasons can also become a blocking factor down the line. The other lesson, as I mentioned, was the control. And inevitably, unless you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're launching Facebook, that's something to watch out for. And I've learned, I've had to give that up. And now as we have larger investors, we can also get very good board members. So that was a trade-off I was able to make and get past this page. The other thing I'll mention is the hardest part of being an angel investor is access. And if you see the deals that are marketed on these platforms, they're probably not their best deals. And the VCs have an ability to find those diamonds in the rough, to bring it back to our scenario. But unless you have access to somebody else that's writing a check, and if you can be in a consortium of other family offices that share deals, that's where we found so many of our investors, is one good investor introduced us to 5 other families, and they all wrote $1 million or $500,000 check. So that's, if you can build that kind of relationship, and this is the perfect kind of venue to do that, I recommend that very highly.
Join the Family Office Club by visiting familyoffices.com. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event.